welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, The Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 Hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of 3 amazing kids.
And I'm Omari for the second, Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
And of course, we're always blessed to be joined by our producer, Wes Davenport. If you are not listening to Wes and Blake over on the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel, you absolutely should. You should be reading Omari for the second on the Detroit Free Press. Bias here. I think you should be subscribed to the Motor City Hoops Substack, but I am talking very quickly because I am very excited to get to our guest. I am very excited for this. I haven't been able to record with this man for a minute now, and he was always one of my favorite people to talk hoops with. This is a senior writer at The Athletic, covering the Knicks now, the ultimate sneakerhead, probably the best sneakerhead we've had on the pod. I don't know, O2 may want to argue this or not, but yeah.
You don't want to argue it. No, James got it. James got it.
We are joined by James Edwards III. James, thank you so much.
What's up, fellas? Good to see you. Good to talk to you. Omari, I saw you not too long ago, but Bryce, good to see you. I've seen you on multiple podcasts, you and obviously Sam, and you're doing your thing, man. So happy for you and good to catch up with you guys.
Yes. Omari, real quick, let the people know, like anybody that's not watching live, Omari's hair is a little crazy. I will not speak.
It's beautiful. Bone Thugs and Harmony over here. Yeah. No, it's just a little in between action. I'm getting it rebraided tomorrow. Have to get them taken out today. This is like some pre-playoff stuff. I can't be in New York. First playoff series. I'm like, this about to be our 7th off season. First playoff. So I got to make sure the braids look good going there. So this is just some in between maintenance. Like, ignore it. Like, we're here to talk hoops, not here to talk my hair, but that's what's going on.
All right, James, before we get into the series, the Knicks, all of that, you obviously covered this Pistons team for quite a long time.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts from the outside on what happened this year? What surprised you the most? What surprised you the least? Obviously, you're doing a lot of other things, but I know you stay in tune with the league as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think this surprise that people have about how good Cade is, he's been this good. He was this good last year. I understand that people weren't paying attention, but he was really good. Isaiah Stewart, I've been saying it for many years. I haven't checked the mail if there's been any apology letters, but he has the potential to be one of the best defenders in basketball and was this year.
I ain't got none, James, so I assume you haven't got any either.
Yeah, as I say, I'm waiting for those handwritten too, please. Nothing typed. I need handwritten. Asar Thompson has been great. Listen, they have an identity. They have an identity that the city relates to. I think JB Bickerstaff has done an amazing job of getting the guys to buy in. I think that's the hardest thing to do as a coach in the NBA. Credit to Trajan Langdon for making the moves around the margins to take this team to the next level. And also, I think Troy deserves credit, right? Like, he drafted the guys that build this culture. As Isaiah Stewart, Asar Thompson, Cade Cunningham, even Jalen Duren, right, has taken steps forward this year. So this current regime has done a great job of building around the margins. But I even think that the identity, I think this is kind of always what Troy envisioned. Obviously didn't come to fruition last year. I think they were hoping to be a little bit better than they were last year, but you see the vision this year with new people in charge. For sure. James, like, and I know, you of course, you've still followed, just that former beat, but hometown guy as well. I think just watching this grow, we always knew that this had the potential to become what it's been. But, just kind of from the outside looking at it as well, maybe what has surprised you most about this season, just outside of obviously adding, 30 wins to last year's margin, which of course has not happened before. Yeah, I thought that like adding the floor spacers would make a huge difference, but I didn't think it'd make this huge of a difference. Listen, this team hasn't had, Jaden was really good to start the year, but they haven't really had like a true number 2 option for most of this season. And for them to stay afloat while I know Dennis has been there and he's done good. I don't know if the Cade and Dennis minutes have been as good lately, but I mean, listen, Dennis is a good player, but in terms of like going into a playoff series or being a premier team, like you need a true number 2, and they haven't really had one this year. And so the fact that they've been able to find ways to win games, that's super impressive. And it speaks to defense, right? Like defense travels. And I think since Asar's been in the lineup, they've been like top 3 in defense. I know they've been like top 5 since the top of the year. They lock up, man. They play hard. They get out and run. So, I mean, listen, it's kind of hard to say like it's not surprising because like nobody really expected like the 6th seed. I think I wrote one of my last stories before I left was that they would make the play-in. I didn't expect this. And it's a testament to, I think, a lot of the mentals with those guys there that they were able to kind of shake off what they had been through in the past and see the vision forward and kind of rise to the occasion. So it's weird to say it's not surprising, but it's surprising where they ended up, but the way that they're doing it isn't surprising, if that makes sense. It's almost like
like they kind of skipped a year, right? Like last year, like was probably like it should have bridged the gap between the season before and this year, and it didn't.
Exactly.
But it's almost like they just kind of picked up where they probably should have been initially.
Yeah, exactly. And we used to talk about it a lot last year. Like, I know it's probably going to sound dumb to say, but they weren't like that far off from winning like low 20s games last year. They lost a lot of games at the end just doing dumb stuff. They lost a lot of games at the end on some unfortunate late game winners. Listen, if you go, instead of losing 28 straight, if you go 6-22 or 4-18 or 4-22 or what my math is bad, 4-24, like it looks a little bit better, right? But this team lost some close games last year. They would melt down at the end. I think that's the biggest thing I would take away is they still look a little shaky at times to close games, but they found a way to win more often than not. And that's a big plus for this team and this young group.
All right. Let's get into this series now, because obviously you know all things Detroit Pistons, but you are an expert on the New York Knicks. You are the guy we wanted to bring you on. And so let's start with this, James. What do Pistons fans need to know about the Knicks, right? Most Pistons fans, like, I'm not trying to like say, they saw him for 4 games this year, right? We saw one game without Karl-Anthony Towns. We saw one game really early in the year where the Knicks blew the Pistons out. We saw one here recently, no OG and no Josh Hart. Give us the mile high view of the New York Knicks season and who they are and what you feel like we're going to see in the playoffs from them.
Yeah, I mean, they're a talented group. They've won on paper one of the best starting fives in basketball. Super efficient team. Jalen Brunson is that dude. He's very good. I mean, he scored 5 40-point games in the playoffs last year. He's an amazing player. Cat obviously adds a different dynamic in terms of having a stretch big. So they have talent. And I think when you get to the playoffs, the number one priority is have as much talent as possible. So they have that. Now, in terms of this team, they're a bit weird. So they're super efficient offensively, but they rank 27th in 3-point attempts. They don't take a lot of threes. So that's why you see a lot of games. If you turn on the Knicks, it's like, well, why are they struggling with this team? Why are they struggling with that team? Their offenses, they play at a slow pace, one of the slowest in the NBA. They don't get a lot of threes up, and they haven't defended consistently this year. So while all the numbers kind of look like this team is really, really good, the way in which their style makes them vulnerable to some teams, and the Pistons being one of them. The Knicks have struggled this year with fast teams that defend well and have versatility. That's Detroit to a T. So boxing, they always talk about styles make fights. These are kind of the antithesis of one another. Knicks don't turn the ball over too much. Pistons turn the ball over a lot. Knicks don't defend at a high level consistently. The Pistons do. The Pistons can get up threes. The Knicks tend to not get up that many threes. So it's a fascinating fight. And I think that the thing with this Knicks team is they spent a lot of draft capital last year to acquire Mikal Bridges and then use pretty much the rest to get Karl-Anthony Towns. They added another first in that. And this team was only 1 win better than last year, despite being healthier. They lost Brunson for a month and Mitchell Robinson was out half the year. But if you look at games lost to players, they were healthier this year than last year. And they were never able to get to a high level at a consistent rate. You would see stuff here and there where they look really good, but then they turn around and go to overtime with the Bulls, go to overtime with the Hawks. Like, they were just very up and down. And part of that is some of those qualities I already mentioned. So I think the fans here are a little bit let down by this team. And I think a lot of that is rooted in the fact that they did not win a game against Boston and Cleveland this year. They also did not win against Oklahoma City. So a team that went out to try to be title contenders does not look in that tier. I think the Knicks are closer to the Pistons than they are the Celtics. And if you look at the win-loss column, that says that. So it's a weird team, good team, but it's a team that has a lot to figure out with not much time to do it. And I think that's the biggest concern if you're a Knicks fan, is they went into the playoffs with more questions than answers.
You look at just the roster makeups, obviously Kate, probably have to carry one of the heaviest loads this season and, figure things out in spite of that. 26-9. Knicks have 2 guys that are kind of on that tier when you look at, at least from scoring and just the attention that they draw standpoint in Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. When you look at a series like this, you talk about just how much these teams kind of contrast. But do you see that disparity just at the top making a difference over the course of it, especially considering how good this team's been defensively against the Knicks as well?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think there are similarities. Like, I had this talk with Jalen a while ago when we were talking about Cade, and it's like there are similarities in their games. Like obviously one's a small guard, one's a big guard, but they both played it at their own pace. It's not the same pace, but it's like a unique pace to them, right? Like Jalen is very herky-jerky, very much like gets you off balance, just very kind of stutter steps and does a really like unique flow to his game. And same with Cade. Like he's obviously a little bit slower, but he just plays at his own pace, and they're both tremendous in the pick and roll. They go that now what they do in after that is a little bit different, right? Like Jalen has Cat, who should pop more than he does. And we'll see if that happens in the playoffs. Obviously has shooters all around. Cade has more rim running guys, deep paint touches, kick out to shooters. So I think that there are similarities for sure. But what I will say is the versatility that Detroit has defensively, I think gives them an edge in that department here, simply because Asar can guard Jalen Brunson and they could put him on Cat, right? The Knicks are going to have to, for as good as Jalen and Cat are as offensive players, right? Like they're going to have two players on the floor in the most meaningful minutes where teams are going to try to hunt them. Obviously, the Pistons, weirdly, for as good as they are defensively, they have like two really good defenders in their starting lineup and then like three okay at best, right? So, but they find a way to play on a string. I think the Knicks sometimes lack communication. They can get beat off ball. There's something about how the Pistons defend as a team that I think overcomes some of the individual defensive issues that some guys have.
I've had this conversation on some Knicks podcasts I've been on, and then just some Knicks people I've got to know over time. What do you think the Knicks X factor is in this series, James? Like as we start to really dive into this series and the matchups and the personnel, you know, Sam has told me he thinks it's Cat, you know, like Cat dominating that matchup. I had somebody else reach out like, no, it's Josh Hart because, you know, maybe Detroit will decide not to guard him. Who do you think it is? Is it somebody in the starting lineup? Is there a bench? Maybe it's a certain aspect of the game, not a specific player. What is the X factor for the Knicks to definitely take this series?
Yeah, I have two. It's Josh and Mikal. Josh being, like you mentioned, like teams have guarded him with their centers, daring him to shoot. He's been hesitant at times this year, didn't shoot a great percentage, but if you recall last year in the playoffs, he basically won the Knicks, the Philly series. He shot 40% from three. They dared him to shoot and he knocked him down. Is he going to do that this time around? Mikal is the other one. He's probably going to have the Cade assignment. He's been good defensively, but I don't think he's been what the Knicks have needed in order to kind of make up for having the two targets on that end of the floor. He struggled staying attached on screens and fighting through screens at times, and Detroit has two of the strongest screeners in basketball. So how he defends Cade at the point of attack is going to be huge because when the Knicks get in rotation, they don't communicate super well consistently, and that could be a problem for them. Offensively, they need Mikal to be aggressive. I think it's important to get this young, aggressive Pistons team in foul trouble if you can. And Mikal's shot diet is more mid-range jumpers and corner threes. And yeah, you want to keep the corner threes, but he shoots a lot of mid-range jumpers. And I think those are good for the playoffs in certain moments, but he only shot 118 free throws, which was 100 less than the next closest starter. And his three-point shooting, 35% on the year, which is obviously underwhelming. But even worse, he's 30% above the break. So I'm even curious if Detroit does something where they just dare Mikal to shoot from above the break and see what happens there. So they might need him to change up his shot diet a little bit if you're the Knicks, just to try to be aggressive in terms of getting the Pistons in foul trouble and getting easy buckets. But he's obviously going to have to work hard on defense, and they're going to need him to knock down shots on offense.
If you had to pick one player from the Pistons offensively that you think could be that type of X factor outside of Cade, you know, especially based on just their last three games, who kind of sticks out for you?
I think Asar is the X factor for me. I think eventually there will be a point in this series where the Pistons blitz and the Knicks blitz and the Knicks double team and get the ball out of Cade's hand. And we talked about, I think, the biggest weakness for the Pistons right now. One of them is lack of number two creator. They're going to need Asar to when he gets the ball, make the right decisions, finish at the rim. They're going to need him to make a shot or two from beyond the arc. And I think that Asar has the ability, there's a chance he's guarded like teams guard Josh Hart, right? Like, how does he eat up that space? Do they use him in the short roll? There's ways for them to use him. And I think just how teams will guard Asar, similarly how teams have guarded Josh Hart, how can he take advantage of that and make teams pay?
I kind of have a fun question for you here, James. You mentioned it, like this Detroit team kind of, you know, really has the heart of the city, and part of that is the toughness they play, right? Like, that's a huge part of this. Isaiah Stewart, Ron Holland has come in as a rookie. Who is a player, I think I know where you're going to go with this, but who is a player on the Knicks that could maybe get under Stewart's skin, Malik Beasley's skin, Ron Holland's skin? Like, who's the guy that maybe can talk the trash or do whatever that might make this thing a little bit interesting and fun in regards to that?
See, I think if you ask a lot of Knicks fans, that's part of part of the problem. I don't think that they don't really have a lot of guys that, like, I'm not even joking when I say this. I think there's been like one skirmish all season, and it was like the second week of the season, and it was against the Pacers, and it was OG got into it. I forgot who it was. I think it was the Pacers or the Nets, maybe. It might have been the Nets, and there was a screen set, I think, that OG didn't like. And there was just a little bit of chest bump. But other than that, like, this team has not gotten in any type of skirmishes this year. I think they missed that from Dante DiVincenzo, aside from what he brings as a basketball player, but just kind of his grit and his attitude. I mean, PJ Tucker is one, but like PJ's not going to play in this series. Of guys that'll play, I think I could see just Mitch, because he's such a big dude and can get handsy in the paint and around the glass and around the rim. I could see him just like frustrating guys here and there, but it's not a team that's like going to go out there and trash talk. It's not a team that's going to go out there and poke the bear, so to speak. Like, that's just kind of not who they've been this year.
Isn't Bridges a big trash talker?
He talks trash, but it's just like, it's more so like he'll do like these celebrations he likes to do, and most of the time it's like pointed, like it's him and Campaign doing them at each other.
Oh, okay.
It's never like, he's never like getting in anybody's face saying anything. It's very rare. Yeah, you don't see him calling anybody the B word after he hits a three or anything like that. It's in good spirits. The most he'll do is do his little celebration at the other team's bench, where he'll do his little bobblehead thing. Tibbs only has two. I think Josh has a couple, because he gets on the refs pretty hard. He's the one guy that I could see like not losing his cool is not the right way. He's very professional, but like he loses his cool at the refs sometimes. And I think that's why they like him in that starting group. Brings a little bit of that umph, a little bit of that edge to the group.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the experience at the Garden. I think if that's one thing that a lot of Pistons fans are looking forward to too, it's just that atmosphere. I know people, think about Trae Young going in there and like that kind of interaction. Have you gotten a taste of that just in the regular season at all? Just the way that place could kind of take on its own personality.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly gets loud, and it's full more often than not. Mari, like doing this job, like we're at arenas so much that it's like, it doesn't take me aback. Like, I'm not like, holy, this is like the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. But like, it is very full. It can get loud. They're loyal and dedicated fans.
I think it is interesting. This is one thing we talked about, too, was just the Garden and the experience of the Garden and, giving that stage to the Pistons team. I think you and I both believe they'll be ready for that stage, but I don't think I worry whether or not they're going to be ready for it, but I think you always wonder, right? Like, all of a sudden you hit the playoffs now, and is the moment too big for any? I don't think it's going to be too big for Cade at all. Like, I definitely don't think that, but you wonder a little bit about a Ron Holland or an Asar or somebody like that. So what about from opponent's perspective, James? Like, do you feel like you see guys come in and you notice them like, hey, like, do you get the vibe they're like, I'm in the Garden tonight, this is my stage to really show out?
I definitely get that. I think people love playing in packed arenas. I think people know the type of players who have had historic moments there. There's obviously a lot of celebrities there often. I think definitely it's like a thing for people to check the box on that. And it is an amazing atmosphere, an amazing environment. I think I'm the wrong one to ask, and even probably Omari, like at a point they all like, you do the 82 of these.
They all kind of run together.
They all just kind of run together, but it certainly is. It's always packed. It can get very loud. And yeah, I think it's the name is in itself, like, brings about some type of feeling. The Garden, Madison Square Garden, I think that in itself brings lore.
I want to ask you about something you brought up earlier, and that's the matchup the Pistons are going to go with Jalen Brunson, because we've seen JB actually start Cade Cunningham on him at times. One of those games, Asar wasn't available. The most recent game, I don't know if JB was just trying something different. What would you do? Like, if I put you in JB's shoes, would it, like, Cade scares me because I worry about the foul trouble, but then there's a potential cross match going the other way. Asar's obviously the best defender on the perimeter. What would you do if, trying to go about slowing down Brunson and maybe more importantly, James, like the Brunson cat pick and pop ball, action in general?
Yeah, I think you I think he starts Asar on him. I think in this situation where a team is game planning you for an entire series, I don't think you want Cade working super duper hard on defense and to risk getting in foul trouble, especially as we talked about them not having like a true number 2 option right now. So I don't know if you maybe hide Cade on Josh Hart and let him roam. My guess is you put Cade on like OG Anunoby, or you put him on Mikal Bridges. And then I'm curious to see, do they put Tobias on Cat? Do they just continue to guard with centers? Obviously, as you guys know, the Pistons have struggled with pick and pop bigs this season. Even in the past, like, it's something that they don't get out to shooters quick enough. But in their defense, maybe the Knicks haven't shot a lot of threes, and Cat, I think, has only averaged like 3 threes per game over the last few weeks. So I'm sure the Knicks will address that, and they'll change that, and they'll be more disciplined in their spacing. But I certainly think putting Asar at the point of attack is the best way to go. There are very, very few players in basketball who can defend like he can. And when he's off the floor, it should be Ron Holland. Like, you got to have the best way to try to neutralize an amazing player like Jalen Brunson is to put those long, fast, athletic guys on him. And those guys really get after it. So I think that's the way they go. I'm curious to see what they do with Cat. Teams, the book has been out on the Knicks in terms of teams putting like strong athletic wings on Cat. Tobias is strong, but Isaiah Stewart did a really good job the last game against him. So maybe when Duran's on the floor, they go a different route. And then when Stewart's on the floor, they go a different route. I could see that. But I think that's one of the more interesting, to see how they start that will be one of the more interesting things about this series.
I'm not going to ask you for a series prediction. I'm not going to do that to you. How long do you think this series goes? 7 games, 6-7 games? Or do you see, how long do you see it going, I guess?
I think it goes at least 6.
Okay. I think we're all pretty aligned on that. I'm guessing you feel the same way, Bryce.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a good series. I'm excited. As I've said multiple times, like, I think this is great data collection for the Pistons. And I think it'll be a good test for the Knicks in the first round, which will be good for them. James, let's talk some just NBA hoops in general before we get you out of here. O2 and I were talking all NBA stuff, all rookie stuff. Any strong, like, I don't want to put like, hey, what's your all NBA team, James? Like, I don't know, maybe you have a vote and you definitely don't want to say it. I don't know if it's your turn this year or not, or how that works in New York, but any strong thoughts on all NBA, MVP, coach of the year, like anything just in terms of that dialogue that you feel pretty strongly about, whether it's Knicks or otherwise, DPOY, any of it?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't have a vote this year. Steve Popper has the vote on our beat this year. And I actually looked over his ballot today. He sent it in while we were at practice. For me, like all NBA, like I think there's 4 for sure, right? Like there's Shea, Giannis. Oh, I don't know. I said Giannis before, Jokic. And then Tatum. For me, if anybody says Jalen, Cade, Steph, or Anthony Edwards for that final spot, I'm fine with all of those. And then whoever doesn't make it should be on second team. Then Cat should be second or third team. Defensive player of the year, I really like Lou Dort. I know that there's weird stats out there that say like the Thunder's defense is better when Lou Dort is off the floor. It's just like weird stuff because that team just defends its ass off, but he's amazing. I think Amen Thompson has a shot at defensive player of the year. Rookie of the year, I don't care anything about it. Nothing. I think Ron Holland has worked his way onto one of the all rookie teams though, but I think he's been taking on a bigger load and has been solid at this final stretch of the year. Sixth man of the year, I think I'd give it to Malik Beasley only because you can make the case he's been their second most important player this year. While Pritchard has been amazing and Ty Jerome have been amazing, they're still probably like 4th or 5th on level of importance on their teams, if that. Malik Beasley, I think, I don't know, most people would say he's been the second, third best player on the team this season. So I think there's that. Coach of the year, JB, Kenny, Ime, I think are all deserving. People have different qualities for what they vote for those. Cade should not win most improved.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
there
you.
we go. All
Thank
3 of us
you.
are aligned on there. There we go.
Yes.
Cade has been nice. We need to get back to the most improved award not going to guys who were lottery picks or guys who are just like got their careers going and went from good to really, really good. Like that's the expectation.
And especially that first overall picks of the stack draft.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. With all due respect to Cade, you can't be in the MVP conversation, the first team conversation, and the most improved conversation.
I think that's a slight to him.
I can imagine Cade cares. Like, hey, Cade, you're going to be second team All NBA, but also most improved. Like, Sam finally got off of it on our last episode. Actually, it airs tonight, so now I'm spoiling stuff. Shoot. But Sam has Cade on first team All NBA and finally took him off as most improved. I'm like, thank goodness you can't be 5th in MVP and most improved. Like, I'm out on that.
I know for a fact Cade will tell you he's been nice, and he's right. He's been nice. Cade will tell you, he's like, I've been nice. So those should go to the DeAndre Hunters of the world, the Ty Jeromes of the world. There's probably an old tweet you could find of me where I said if I could beat any player one-on-one, I think I might have said Ty Jerome like 6 years ago. Now Ty Jerome will bust my ass. So
he saw your tweet.
He might have saw my tweet. But yeah, there's a bunch of there's people more deserving, not the number 1 pick who has been good. He just leveled up. But he's on the trajectory he should have been on. And again, I just don't like where that award has gone. Am I missing it? All defense. I mean, you could go so many ways. I said Amen, Mobley, Jaren Jackson, OG Anunoby, Isaiah Stewart should be on there, but the fact that he didn't get to the 20 minutes is kind of absurd.
It's a really weird restriction. Like if you play
Chris
65
Dunn.
games,
Chris Dunn, yeah. But even
Chris Dunn's the same.
I don't want to like question like JB too much. And I imagine that like they needed to make a decision on Duran. So like early in the year, they probably gave him a lot more leash, let him sink or swim to figure out what they had. But I mean, Stu averaging 19 minutes a game, I was a bit surprising to me that he should, for how much he's impacted that team, he should be in the mid-20s. The fact he's been one of the best rim protector. He's been the best rim protector in basketball, and I've said this forever. I think he's even better guarding in space. And so the fact that he missed out, but he's on my should have been on their team.
What? Let me get your quick thoughts. I know we gotta let you go on Dyson Daniels because that seems to be the defense. I'm a little bit lower, but my thing is like I grew up in a just guard, be solid kind of background, and so I don't think I value the steals. Like, are you a Dyson Daniels DPOY candidate, or just like he's all defense but not DPOY?
All defense. I do think there are some things about his defense, and again, he's an amazing player that isn't necessarily conducive to the whole team structure. It's not that he gambles, but he gambles in a smart way. But there's still just like, in terms of like other guys, I think are more important to the team concept defensively. I think Dyson is up there for most improved. He should be in that.
Agreed.
And he should be on an all
100%.
defense team. Yeah, he's a monster.
Yeah, his offense is what I always try to bring up with Dyson Daniels. Is like he got really good on that end.
Yeah,
so
no, he did.
All right, we'll get you out. Any final thoughts on the series? Again, I'm like 0-2. We're not going to make you make a prediction.
I mean,
like,
I will.
No
I
fun.
think the Knicks win in 6 or 7, and why I think that is they have a lot of talent. And the Pistons have a turnover problem, and it's been a problem for a while. And I don't think it's going to be. Listen, I think one thing that people keep talking about is the bright lights and all this stuff. Omari, you know these guys well. I know them. These guys ain't afraid of. I don't think they're afraid of that. And if they were like an offensive team that like relied on jump shooting, I would buy it. Right? Like shaky legs, defense travels. Defense don't got nothing to do with nerves. They're a defensive team. And also, they lost 28 straight games. The whole world was watching them, waiting for them to lose. That's pressure. Going into a playoff series with house money, if you get swept, there's not going to be a person on planet Earth that says the Pistons had a bad season. They have nothing to lose. So what I will say is I do think the Knicks win in 6 or 7. Simply the Pistons turn the ball over, the lack of number 2 option, and the Knicks are a very, very talented team. What I will say is if the Pistons win, I think they win in 5 or 6 because of the Knicks' struggles against top 10 defenses. They're 9-20. They've struggled against fast, physical teams. That's exactly what Detroit is. And if Detroit comes into the game or comes into the series, gets up a decent lead early and doesn't look afraid, there's a fragility about this Knicks team that Knicks fans who have watched know. Like, this is a team that hasn't risen to the occasion. This is a team that kind of struggles in terms of like rising to the moment at times and I don't want to say the toughness, but like we don't know. Everybody says it. We don't know what it is when we talk about the it factor, but we know when we see it. We know when it's missing when we see it. And it feels like the Knicks as a collective are missing it and the Pistons have it. So if you told me there's a world where the Pistons came out and immediately punched New York in the face and it really had a ripple effect through the whole series, wouldn't surprise me. But I want to say, I think the talent, the Pistons is struggling. Key thing, you cannot let the Knicks get easy points and turnovers or lead to that. The Knicks are a team that works for their points. And if you allow them to get layups and stuff, like it's going to be a hard day for you at the office. And just the lack of a number 2 option, I think, in the playoffs is really going to hurt a team.
Man, James, thank you so much.
Wait, where are you guys at? Hold on. You're not letting me die on an island alone. Somebody's got to say something.
That was so eloquent. I'm like, no, we're just going to leave it right here. This is
just give me winner and number.
Yeah. No, my thoughts are published on the internet. I also have Knicks in 7, pretty much for the same reasons you mentioned. But I mean, if the Pistons get game 1, like this feels like if this were March Madness, this would be like the 10-7.
Yeah.
Where like 6 out of 10 people.
Yeah.
Or 12-5 where everybody's taking the 12 or the 10 or whoever.
This was the upset, but
like this feels like the upset seed. So because of 7, I go Knicks, but I agree with you where I can see the Pistons punching them early and getting in at 6.
Pistons win game 1 behind a big Cade game. They get another Beasley/Tim Hardaway Jr. game. Knicks in 7, even though Cade goes crazy in the Garden in game 7. Like, it's just, they made a huge jump. It's going to be really impressive. I'm with you, James. Like, I think you look back this year and like, this was nothing other than a success for this team. But I think ultimately I agree with you wholeheartedly with the number 2 thing. I just think in a playoff series that eventually is going to show up. And I don't know if the Pistons can do it by committee enough times to actually win the series. But
yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think it'll be competitive. So thank you for joining us. Before we let you go, let everybody know where they can find your stuff throughout the series and beyond.
Yeah, I'm at The Athletic, on Twitter at JL Edwards III. I'm sure most of your listeners hopefully still follow me. If not, they know where to find me. Me and Hunter Patterson, who took over for me in Detroit, we have a preview coming tomorrow. If you're a Knicks fan, I got some stuff up now where I talk to fans that I talked to at the beginning of the year about this very exciting season coming in and where they stand now. I have a column about the pressure the Knicks are facing this playoffs. And then on Friday, I'll have a feature on Jalen Brunson. So check all that stuff out.
Make sure you follow everything James does. You guys know this already, but incredible work. One of the best. He'll be covering the NBA at large in no time.
Thanks, fellas.
And he's on the path there. Omari, take him away and take us into break.
Yeah, James, you're the GOAT. You're the homie. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Anytime for anything for you, bro.
And this is going to be a fun series, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be good to see you. We did just see each other. Where were we at? LA. The Pistons and Knicks
We were in
LA
LA.
trip overlapped, and we got to get drinks. So that was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it'll be good. We got to hit. Listen, I got to get to my hibachi spot. Why am I Osaka?
Okay.
We got to get to Bronx. We got to get to Frida Batida. Like we out here, baby. Wait, Detroit, I'm coming. Get all my restaurant spots ready.
Yeah, we have a list.
No, I'm excited, and I appreciate you guys having me on. You guys do a great job.
Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, James. We appreciate you.
Yep.
We'll talk soon.
Peace.
Guys, we will be back right after this.
And we are back with segment 2, maybe. I guess we'll see how this goes, but this might be a 2-segment pod. We'll see. Man, yeah, this is an exciting series, man. Like, I tweeted this the other day, but like an off season with no coach search, no GM search, no first round pick, no lottery pick at all. There was no end of season press conference Monday, the day after the season, for the first time. And it's just hoops. We've been talking about it like all year, but I just want to take a minute and acknowledge, like, we are finally here. We got here. Playoffs are on Saturday, and I'm excited. I'm super excited, man.
It's crazy because it is finally here, and I'm like, what do I do with myself? Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to go ahead and shout it out now. I did a Bobby Klintman breakdown today, video breakdown over on the Substack, so go check that out. But it was like, we have a few days here, so I might as well do this. But I also have a preview for the series coming on Thursday. I went back and looked at all my notes from the games against the Knicks season this year, or from the Knicks this season. That's a redundant
tongue twister a little bit.
Yeah, made it more complicated than it needed to be. And I just pulled out the things I thought were important for the series. So look for that on Thursday. But yeah, man, it hit me 82 games. You know, as I number my game notes as I put those into the Google Drive so I can find them a little bit easier and keep them in order. And it was a long season, but it's crazy. I felt like it went so much faster, O2, because they were winning games. Do you feel that as well? I feel like the last few seasons have drug out so long, especially the end of the season.
No, I've been telling people over the last couple of weeks, like, that was by far the fastest March in like first half of April ever since I started doing this. Like, March always drags out because all the main guys are shut down. And like at that point, like you're like for the last 3-4 weeks, you're, you know, essentially watching, you know, the bench guys, a lot of two-way guys, like guys on 10-day contracts, like you know, that they signed late in the year just to get a look at guys. And, you know, just from a day-to-day kind of beat writing standpoint, a lot of the most pertinent stuff is kind of shoved to the side until you get to the end of the year. So yeah, those last 6 weeks drag. And this year it just seemed like we blinked and we just got here. Like, time flies when you're having fun is the cliche, but definitely absolutely flew by like a rocket ship.
All right, let's go to this real quick, talking about the season, and then we'll talk about our thoughts on the preview and all of that. What went right this year? Like, let's review this a little bit, because while I agree with James that even if the Pistons get swept, we will and should look back on the season very fondly and in a very positive manner, I have a feeling that it will get skewed negatively a little bit. So hopefully that won't happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be a very competitive series. But before the playoffs can skew some of our views, right? Because I assume there's going to be a player that we watch in the playoff that either gets played off the court, gets played onto the court, really shows up, and it's going to skew some things a little bit. How did we get here? How did the Pistons make this? This is always the first question question people ask me whenever I guest on a pod or the radio or whatever. Cade Cunningham, we've talked about. What else is it? How did we get to this point, O2?
Man, so it's interesting, right? Because they come into the season 0-3, and then they begin to win some games, but I think they were 11-17 before they really, began to get going. And then they won like something crazy, like 18-20 or something like, it wasn't 18-20, like whatever it was, 13-15. They basically won more than they lost to an extreme degree for a month after that point. It starts with defense. Like, I think, what James mentioned earlier and what we've talked about, obviously on the pod a lot is, I think this team kind of bought into that early. They bought into their identity early. And I think once the team really got settled, like, I think in any season when you have new faces, it probably takes a good 15 to 20 games to really get into a rhythm and gel and figure everything out. But we began to see that flip, I thought really in the middle of November. That first win over the Knicks, in December. That first win over the Knicks was December 7th. And that was the game where I think it was Cade's 5th triple-double of the year. And he was at Madison Square Garden. And that was one of the wins that was like, okay, like it's not too many times this team that's going on the road and put together a convincing win like that. So it was that, I think around the time they lost their last play-in game to Milwaukee, and there was like that kind of feeling of like, we're better than that, which like it felt like they had left something on the table, which hadn't been felt in a while because they actually had something to play for. And then obviously once they got to Phoenix and, and they beat them, I think that was really the spark that got them going. But if you're just looking at confidence builders early, like I think those games where you really start to see that defensive ability shine, but also kind of like their pride and understanding that maybe we can actually play better than we thought we could. That's really when it started, I think, in mid-December. And we didn't know what it was going to turn into, but clearly they were starting to figure some things out and get better.
I think they saw the process working, and that was huge. Like they were trying to do the right things. I remember, wasn't it Malik Beasley that when they were 0-4 was like, we're right there. We're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. We're right there. And once you feel that success, quote unquote, and the process paying off, it's even easier to dig into it. And I feel like that's what this team did. The word I've used all season is they respond. Within quarters, within runs, within games, within stretches of games, they always respond. There was always this little like, man, they would lose 2 and you'd be like, oh, is this about to go bad? And then they would respond with a big win. Organic said, season dragged on a little once we clinched the playoffs. I've been ready to get to business. I do agree with that. I've been a little bit disconnected since I didn't really care whether they ended up 5 or 6, who they played, whatever. But I would agree with that. Chuck Brewer says coaching. Michael brings up a good point. Team health. For sure, right? Like, yes, you had the start to the season thing with the SAR, and then you had the halfway to end of the season with Ivy. But outside of that, they have been a pretty healthy team. So I think that's a big part of it. Let's move into the preview a little bit. The Pistons won 3 of 4 against the Knicks this season. Omari, how do they repeat that success? James brought up if the Pistons win this series, and then, he talked about how he thought he was going to. How do we think the Pistons can win this series?
Yeah. First of all, defense again. Like, that's really where it starts, where in those last 3 games, like I went back and checked just, the Pistons defensive rating in those games relative to how New York had performed all season. And even if Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns kind of shook loose and still had decent games, like they did a good job of shutting them down as a team, but also not allowing, Cat and Brunson or one other guy to really get going. Like, it seems like Josh Hart, Michael, OG, like those guys have been kind of like a lot more quiet. And I know OG missed the last game, obviously, but that's where it starts to be. It's just defense continuing to kind of set the pace of the game, set the tone with your physicality, because it doesn't seem like this is a Knicks team, even though like they're a Tibbs team. And I think Tibbs teams always have like that more slow, grinded out pace. Like, I don't know if personnel wise, they're a team that's necessarily built to do that. So it really starts with punching first, and we can talk about Cade and everything else, but I think you have to punch first defensively and sustain that to even have a chance in this series.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I'm excited about this. Let's talk matchups real quick here. Let's assume healthy starting lineups. Brunson, Bridges, OG, Cat, Hart. I did that out of order. I'm sorry. I get really mad when people do that. Let me try that again. Brunson, Bridges, Hart, OG, Cat. For the Pistons, Cade, Tim Hardaway Jr., Asar, Harris, Duran. Let's just go player by player. O2. Wes, I want to get your thoughts as well. Chat, get into it also. Who starts on Jalen Brunson? Who starts games? I'm not saying the middle portion of the game. I'm not saying whenever subs happen. I'm not even saying end of game situations. This seems like an easy answer, but as I was going through my preview thing for Thursday, I realized how much Cade Cunningham was on Jalen Brunson. Do we think JB stays there, or does he go ahead and make the move to Asaro too? Wes says Asar Thompson.
I say go with Asar. Just come out swinging. Like that's your best option. You probably don't want to risk Cade getting into foul trouble or have to take on more than he needs to. And I still think with Cade, like, Josh Hart could get going, like Michael could get going, OG, like all those guys could get going. I think you have to kind of cut it off at the head of the snake. And yeah, I'm putting Asar on Brunson for sure.
Okay, I am going to skip to the other side of their lineup then, because their second most important offensive player is Karl Anthony Towns. We have seen in general Jalen Duren on Cat in these matchups. We have seen some situations where JB has put Tobias on the big and let Jalen Duren play on a bigger forward wing. What do we think happens here to start games and start this series?
I can see them starting with Duren.
Okay.
And if that's going south pretty early, like he gets 2 early fouls or whatever, I can see them pivoting to Tobias pretty rapidly. I'm curious to see how Duren fares in this series, because I think basketball just changes significantly for bigs in the playoffs. And like he's going to have to hold his own against Cat, for at least 20 minutes a night. Otherwise, I think defensively you're kind of in a weird spot where, you want Isaiah Stewart on him, you want Tobias on him, maybe P. Reed, but you're probably figuring out what to do. I'm curious to see how Duren's able to handle that matchup and what they do early, because I think you have to start off with him just because you have to know if he can do it. But if that's an issue early on, then I think that does force some tough rotation decisions for you going forward.
The reason I ask is because I've had a lot of Knicks people throw at me. Like, I think if you ask a Knicks follower, fan, content creator, whatever, they would assume Tobias Harris is going to take the Karl Anthony Towns matchup and Jalen Duren will be on Josh Hart, because that's what a lot of teams do to them. I'm with Wes, also said Jalen Duren. I'm with you guys. And a big reason for that is, and I don't want it to be at the fault of losing this series, I want to find out about Jalen Duren. Like, I want to see him guard Karl Anthony Towns. We've given him a lot of love, and rightfully so, for his growth this season, O2. I want to see it in the playoffs against Towns. Okay, so we have Asar on Brunson. We have Duren on Towns. Let's match up the rest. I would assume then we're putting Tobias on OG and Anunoby.
I'll put Tobias on OG.
We'd put Tim Hardaway Jr. then on, are you going to put him on Bridges, or are you going to quote unquote hide him on Josh Hart? Or are you going to let Cade hide on Josh Hart and...
No, I'll let THJ hide on Josh Hart. And then I think you put Cade on Michael. If Josh Hart gets going, then you could probably live with that. But I think that's probably the matchup you feel most comfortable with, right?
So Wes says Cade on Hart, Harris on OG, THJ on Bridges. So it's interesting. Here's my thing. Here's what I think is interesting with this is you want a good off-ball defender, and Rodney, RB Nesbitt, longtime follower, supporter, needs someone who rebounds on Hart. That is huge. I think this is where Cade could make sense in terms of Cade can be a good rebounder. Is Tim Hardaway Jr. going to get the box outs? I think it'll be interesting how this all plays out. Now, we know they're going to come set ball screens and people are going to get switched and all of that. So Organic says THJ team defense is solid. Man-to-man defense is uh-oh. So maybe it is Tim Hardaway Jr., right? Like maybe that he can be this off-ball rotation guy, all of those things. I mean, that's where it gets interesting. If you could put Cade on Brunson, think about the Swiss Army knife you have with Asar Thompson now, whether it's on Hart and be a help defender, whether it's on Cat, like do you put him on Cat and like change it up there? So it will be very interesting how they match up. Real quick on the other side before we go to break, who do you think the Knicks start on Cade Cunningham?
Now, that's an interesting question. I think you go with OG. I think he's your strongest defender up front. And like, especially last game where, the Knicks were a bit smaller with guys out. Like, you see how Cade will just bully anybody who's smaller than him. Like, I don't think you can really live with that, especially with him going into the post and into mid-range, I think a little bit more and really finding his groove there. So, like, I think you have to go OG. Like, it's kind of the same logic with Asar and Brunson. Like, you just put your strongest defender up front and, trust it. And Josh Hart can't defend Cade. Michael fared pretty badly against Cade. Yeah, I think I'm going with OG.
Yeah, I think they're going to go with OG as well. That's where I would go if I was Tibbs. This is interesting from YouTube user. Tobias eats any defender alive that isn't OG, though. that is interesting. Like, you're probably gonna have to put Josh Hart on Tobias then. I just think they have to go OG, or if they're not gonna go OG, then they start off doubling him, because I don't think Mikal can guard him. I like Deuce McBride. Cade just gonna take him to the post, and he's gonna be too small as well. So I think it's a lot of very interesting matchups on both sides of the court. And then again, it's like, how well does each team matchup hunt or switch? Like, can the Pistons get Brunson on Cade whenever they want? Can the Knicks get Tim Hardaway Jr. or Beasley or whoever on Brunson anytime they want? Those type of things will be really, really fascinating. We are going to go to a short break. Whenever we come back, we have a bunch of your questions starred that we will get into right after this. All right, we are back with our final segment here. We'll go for another 10, 15 minutes or so. Aruna said, can you imagine the hype at LCA if J.I. is healthy enough to get some spark plug minutes in game 3? So obviously referring to Jaden Ivey right here with the spark plug minutes. This is really interesting to me. I mean, I think it would be one of those things is, what is the series? Like, here's my thing. I think, like, if you're up 2-0 on the Knicks going back to LCA and J.I. is healthy, do you put him in the rotation? What does that look like? If they're down 0-2, to me, it makes a lot of sense. What if you're 1-1 and you have stolen home court advantage? So I don't know. I think that's a really tough position to put J.I. in. I don't know that you're getting a whole lot of real data out of that anyway. Maybe if you do feel like the team needs 8 to 10 minutes of what J.I. could bring in that situation, I'll be honest with all of you. Like, I've kind of just moved forward assuming J.I. is not going to be a part of this thing until next season. Babrone, so who gets left out of the Pistons playoff rotation, or do they keep the same rotation? This one is very, very interesting to me as well. YouTube user, get the links up for this playoff likes up. Yes, get the likes up. I thought you were wanting the links. I was like, I haven't put it out yet. Yes, get the likes up. We appreciate it. Organic says J.I. will be ready by game 3 for the Celtics. Love it. Guys, I think Fontecchio might get left out. Am I crazy? I don't know. Like, I feel like that's who it's going to be. Yeah, the comments are rolling in. Chuck Brewer says, Tech, please. Allen, does Tech play? Some of his minutes were on the downtrend, I feel like, leading into the last game of the season. Holland seems like he's playing well and found his role. I don't know. I know he did make some catch and shoot opportunities in that final game against the Bucks. We all kind of know what that game was in terms of who was playing and who wasn't. I don't know. If I had to guess, I would say Fontecchio. I think Schroeder's going to be in the rotation. I think Beasley's going to be in the rotation. I think Isaiah Stewart is definitely going to be in the rotation. I think Ron Holland is going to be. I could see his minutes being a little bit more limited. I think you roll with that starting 5. You figure out Schroeder, Beasley. Again, Isaiah Stewart gets a ton of minutes. I think what's interesting, guys, is what if New York does go to the Karl Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson lineup? Does Detroit match? Do they feel like they have to match with Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren? Wes, we saw one game of some Stu and Duren minutes early in the year, maybe. Can't be very many minutes of those two guys together. So that would be interesting. Yeah, it's like, as Chuck says, 9-man rotation. Does Sasser actually get spot minutes if they really needed something? So definitely interesting there with those guys. Yeah, Tech played 6 minutes in the last game against the Knicks. My only concern with this series is, did the Pistons show their hand in the Knicks experience? I don't think so, Devon. Like, I think one game Cat was out, one game OG and Josh Hart were out. So, like, you can throw those 2 outs in terms of schematics. And I don't know that I felt like watching a Pistons Knicks game, there was ever a point where I'm like, man, JB's doing stuff that he hasn't been doing. And there's really shown. If anything, I thought he hid some stuff. When's the last time you remember this team playing zone? I don't remember. I thought there was a stretch there during the middle to the two-thirds point of the season where they went to zone after timeouts, start of quarters, stuff like that. And I don't know that we've seen it a lot recently. So I don't think the Knicks showed too much, I don't think the Pistons showed the Knicks too much with what they did. Here's the biggest thing I'm hoping the Pistons have saved all year, guys, is not soft switching Asar off the primary offensive player for the other team. I don't want to see the Knicks get Asar switched off Brunson anytime they want. That would be very frustrating for me. Jeremy says, think Stewart is going to play major minutes this series, even more than Duren. He is just a better matchup against Cat. What do you think, O2?
I could see it for sure. And we've always said too, like, I mean, I feel like I've been saying this since Stu's rookie year. Like, he's the type of big that's going to really flourish in the playoffs because he's the perfect playoff big. Like, he can defend in space. Obviously, he can protect the rim. You're not going to be able to play him off of the floor because no matter what lineup you throw at him, he's going to be able to adapt. So, I mean, yeah, and that's not even a slight on Duren necessarily. I just think this isn't a series where you could necessarily afford to play, Isaiah Stewart less than 20 minutes a night. One thing I'm curious to see, though, is if, Stu can step up his three-point shooting and at least make up some of the offensive gap, because what Duren doesn't give you defensively, like, he does give you a lot just with his downhill gravity and offensive rebounding and everything else. So, yeah, I think Stu's minutes are going to go up.
Did Stu's recent suspension reset his technical suspension count? The technical fouls do reset in the playoffs. This actually came up with Anthony Edwards as well, where he must have got his rescinded so he could play in that final game. Is that right? Because I thought he hit 16 and then they rescinded one and then that allowed him to get the 3-point. But I think it's 7 in the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken.
7 sounds right. I think it is 7, but it does reset. So he's not going to go in like having to look over his shoulder for a suspension. Like Draymond, like the year Draymond got suspended in the playoffs.
That's what's crazy. Like, he got 7 in the playoffs where he got himself suspended for a game in the finals. Like, what? Crazy.
But yeah, like, how does that happen? But if he had come into the season already with the count against him, he would have been suspended way earlier. So
Downtown Deuce, what's up, our guy? Said, what's up, fellas? Yeah, Ants Tech was rescinded. Organic, Ivy was on a cakewalk toward most improved player before he got hurt. I agree. I think, like, there's a chance he definitely could have got that, although I still wouldn't have loved it. I remember doing one of our first awards on Game Theory. I didn't have Cade or Ivy, and Sam was the one that brought him up. Chuck says, Summer League looks to be boring from a Detroit's perspective. Klintman and maybe Holland. Yeah, I mean, here's what I'll say also, guys. That Pistons pick, I think, is locked in at 37. I don't know what's going to be there at 37. This draft is going to be really interesting because NIL is insane. When dudes are getting paid $3.5 million to stay in college, you're not going to see some of those talented guys at the end of the first round, the top of the second round that are usually in a draft, because they're going to go back to college and make more money doing that, at least in this upcoming season. So I am fascinated to see what the boards end up looking like when it's all said and done. A top of the second, 37 may not look super attractive, other than you're still going to have some older prospects, but we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, Summer League, Klintman, I assume we see a little bit from Holland. I would get there for the first game or two. I realize I need to start looking at flights and hotels, Omari. That's kind of sneaking up on me now that we haven't been thinking about draft and lottery and Summer League because we have playoffs to talk about. So
yeah, it would be, it's going to be like when we do get to draft season, I'm, part of me hopes they do go for a first round pick just so we could have a little bit of something to talk about, just a little bit.
I listen to these Chiefs pods and they like give each other assignments. I'm going to give you assignments once we get to, YouTube user says there are some older bigs that I think will be there in the second round. I'm going to give you some assignments. I'll be like, hey, go watch this guy and then we can talk about him. But we don't got to do that this year. Steven Suggs, ask about Zion. I'm out. Omari, for right now, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm out. Like, I don't even know what they would have to trade to make the money work, but I just don't see any combination that makes sense for the Pistons.
I'm out on a big move anyway. Actually, somebody texted me specifically about this today, and I was like, I just can't trust the health. Like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, he played 30 games this year?
Yeah,
it's not worth the risk. It's not worth the risk.
Bob, cool. We're Knicks the only team over 500 the Pistons won the series from. Wes looked this up and said the Lakers. I think maybe there were some other splits, but it was the Knicks. There were some other decent teams that I think they won the series. And then Slim Whopper, what's with Stu passing up open threes? Is it a confidence thing or schematics? I would assume that it was just kind of a point of emphasis coming into the season. I do feel like Omari, we saw him up that just a touch towards the end of the season where he'd take some of those trail threes.
Yeah, like I think the main thing with Stu is like they've emphasized him, getting back to what's normal. And I think some of that is just his natural inclination is to pass up a three rather than shoot it. Now, obviously, if he notices that the big is potentially playing off of him and giving it up, and he's got that aspect of, okay, like he's disrespecting me, so I need to show him like I knocked out a three, like he'll do that. But just general in the flow of an offense, like Stu is not thinking like this possession needs to end with me taking a 3-pointer. Like, I just think that's his approach to the game. And as he continues to knock them down, maybe that'll change. But to me, like those are just ingrained habits because he's always played center and hasn't been asked to do that. So like 1.5 years to him being a volume shooter probably won't won't change that when they say go back to the paint.
Yeah, I mean, looking through the monthly numbers, it really isn't. He took 1 per game in November. December, he only played 6 games. January was a little less. I mean, in April, he's taken 8 in 3 games, but it's been April basketball. We talked about that a little bit. Okay, let's end on this before. Well, I'll ask you this one, and then we'll kind of give some final thoughts before. Guys, we will probably record after game 2. Depending on when it ends up being, we don't know that yet. Assuming it's like Monday or Tuesday, we'll record the day after. We'll have Sean Windsor on, who will be at both of those games. May get a Knicks guest on as well, depending on how long Sean can join us and all that. Obviously, plenty of coverage coming throughout this playoff series. So we'll get our final thoughts on that in a second. Thoughts on Joe Dumars to the Pelicans, O2. Wes, I assume you have comments too, so drop them in the chat and I will share.
Yeah, Joe Dumars obviously is a legend in Detroit, for what he built. I think a lot of his decisions later that, a lot of fans kind of hate him for, or at least used to, were also just a result of him being hamstrung by ownership. It was just like, you look at the end of his time as president, like that was right, kind of like when the ownership change took place. And I just think there was stuff going on above his head that had his hands tied a little bit. With that said, like there's also a lot of execs across the league with a fraction of JD's credentials who have gotten second, third, and fourth chances. So, I'm all for it. I think it would be awesome, not just for JD, but just for the city as well, to be able to see him, enjoy success down there. And it's cool to see. I'm definitely curious to see how that goes.
So Wes said, happy to see him getting a chance with what he thinks is his hometown team. No deeper thoughts than that. Good for a Piston legend. So love it. All right. Final thoughts before we see game 1 on Saturday night in prime time at Madison Square Garden. Cade Cunningham and the Detroit Pistons, off a very successful regular season, go into New York, take on the New York Knicks. What do you think, Omari? What's your final thoughts, takeaways? We kind of already gave our predictions. We buried that in the middle of the episode. But what do you think?
I mean, I think it's a great matchup. Like, if you had to come up with a matchup that on paper, like, really generates momentum and excitement for the Pistons, this is it. You're at Madison Square Garden against a team that you beat 3-1, including the last 3. A series where Cade went off in all 3, 36 points in 2 of those games, a triple-double in the other, on like 57% shooting. Like, it's just a great matchup. It feels like this is the right type of matchup to close off a season that's been as successful, as exciting as it's been for this team. And, also this is probably the last time that they're going to have like a house money scenario where it's just all upside. So, like, enjoy the series. Like, I'll just say that too. Enjoy the series, win, lose, draw, whatever it is. It'll be fun. I'm excited for it personally. I know you are too.
And be respectful to everybody. Listen, like, the Knicks Pistons thing is already happening. Again, I had a Knicks person like, man, Pistons fans are like getting after it. I think they were talking about the views and comments on a video somewhere. And it's like, yeah, like these people went through it whenever this team was never winning. So you knew they were going to come out whenever they did start winning. So try not to go at each other a little bit too much, but yeah, have fun with it. Enjoy it. I'm excited for it. I told someone today, I don't care whether they win or lose. It's about data collection. And I think this is the absolute series. I'll say it one final time before we finally get a game. I think it's the ultimate data collection series for the Detroit Pistons, for Jalen Duren guarding Karl Anthony Towns, for Asar Thompson guarding Jalen Brunson, for Cade Cunningham, all NBA Cade Cunningham. He should be on your second team ballots, in my opinion. It's funny. I kind of get frustrated when I hear people say that he's third team. And I'm like, well, it's okay. He's still all NBA. It's not that big of a slight, but I'm excited for all of it. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And we get to break down Detroit Pistons playoff basketball 0-2. I don't know that I thought we were going to get there. Your first playoff game 1 on Saturday as a beat writer. Got to get the hair right. I know that's what you're doing tomorrow. So you'll be ready. We will be back next week again with guests, with breaks down, talking about you guys enjoy it, have fun. Please make sure you're reading Omari on the Free Press. Please make sure you're listening to Wes and Blake on the Pin Down on Detroit Bad Boys YouTube. Omari and I are going to be on Locked On Pistons probably tomorrow or something like that. So make sure you guys tune into that. It'll be all over the place. Also, the Motor City Hoops Substack. Would love for you guys to subscribe and read and everything that's going on over there. Other than that, O2, it's going to be fun. Take it away, my guy.
Big thanks, as always, to our audio producer, Robin Chan, our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols. A big shout out to West Davenport, as always, and we'll talk to you all next week.